Ladies and gentlemen, every time our phone rings, a lot of us just ignore the call because apps like Truecaller notify us that it's a spam call. But now telecom regulator TRAI has decided to intervene. As per TRAI, apps can't block calls from the 1600 and the 140 series numbers. Essentially, these numbers are designated for banks and telemarketers. But Truecaller says it's like giving bad actors open ground to spam and therefore scam us. Now, this has triggered a debate in the country. Is Truecaller fighting the good fight against the regulator, or does TRAI have a point as well? Truecaller CEO Rishit Jhunjhunwala is joining me live on the broadcast. As I say, he's taken a bit of a panga with the government. Rishit, thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now. You're fighting the good fight. You're calling yourself the good actor here. Is it your contention that TRAI is actually trying to spam us consumers?
Well, I don't think TRAI is trying to spam us. I think TRAI had good intentions in saying that we'll have the designated number series and that will rein in the spammers. But in doing that, what they've inadvertently done is actually enabled spammers, because 1600, 140, both these number series are now completely whitelisted on all apps, including Truecaller. And because of that, spammers love this situation. So there is a lot of spam that we've seen increase with 140 and 1600 because they're entirely whitelisted now and they can never be marked as spam. Even if lakhs of users are telling us every day, we can't mark them as spam.
Okay, so 1600 is what? It is banking calls essentially. 140 is what? It is telemarketing calls. Now the 140 series, as a consumer, I say they are all spam. I don't want people calling me, asking me if, if I want to buy a flat near a pond, etc. But 1600, which is mostly banking calls, could have some real calls that consumers need to take, some genuine calls, as they say. Why block them as spams?
Right. So the opposite is actually what is happening. The fact is that 1600 was supposed to be a trusted channel. And if you want to create a trusted channel, both the sides have to uphold that trust. What instead happened was, when you whitelist those numbers and nobody can mark them as spam, then spammers use that number. And now what consumers are saying is, it's a 1600 number. It's likely to be a personal loan or insurance selling spam. And therefore, I'm not going to pick up 1600 numbers anymore. Instead, if the consumer's voice is respected, and if lakhs of consumers say that this is spam, and on Truecaller it shows up as spam, then spammers would have been careful that we should not spam using 1600 because they will become spam marked on Truecaller. Instead, they're now saying that it can never be spam on Truecaller, so let's spam using 1600. And therefore, consumers are saying, I don't need to pick up 1600 calls anymore. So it's actually having the opposite effect, that legit calls are actually not being picked up because the bad calls are getting through so easily on 1600.
But the government did ask you to comply, and you did comply. When you did that, what did you see in terms of the number of spams? Because I believe the number of spam calls actually went up.
Right. So technically, we didn't have to comply. We are not regulated by TRAI. TRAI is a regulator for licensed telecom entities, and we are not a licensed telecom entity. So we fall under the IT Act, and we are regulated by MeitY, therefore. So we didn't technically have to comply, but we are good actors. We collaborate with multiple governments around the world. We share fraud data with multiple governments around the world. We always have a dialogue with TRAI, with DOT, with various government agencies who we verify on Truecaller. So we are always collaborative with the government, and if the government is rolling out an initiative with designated number series, we said, fair enough, you're rolling out your designated number series, we will comply. And all 140, 1600 series numbers are never marked as red on Truecaller. They are blue on Truecaller. So we complied after giving the government our submission that we believe this will result in a few problems. We did comply. Now, once we complied, what we saw is straight away, as businesses started adopting 140 and 1600 numbers and consumers started getting those calls, we saw that consumers are starting to block those numbers. And this was surprising to us because 140 is supposed to be with consent, so consumers should not be blocking these calls. And 1600 is supposed to be service and transactionals, so consumers shouldn't be blocking these calls. And that number skyrocketed. We've reached a stage when 140 is blocked more than 4 lakh times a day, and 1600 is blocked more than 1 lakh times a day. And this number continues to increase. And this clearly tells us, I mean, it's very, in spite of being whitelisted on Truecaller, consumers are manually saying, please block this number from calling me, which obviously means that there is spam coming through on these numbers.
Rishit, you, I'm sure, have had conversations and multiple conversations with the government. What has been their logic?
Yeah, the government's logic on 140 is that there is a registry, there is a consent registry, a DND platform, and if consumers have given consent there, then it should be fine. I think operating that at scale, at a scale that India operates in, I don't think that's adequate right now. And the logic for 1600 was that legitimate calls should be picked up by banks, which is a fair ask. They should be picked up. But then telling apps like Truecaller and other entities to not show them as spam, I think that gave spammers what I called a get out of jail free card. And I think that's a dangerous precedent to set.
So how do you see this end?
I mean, yeah, I'm standing up for consumer. Truecaller is a community of 500 million people globally, 350 million people in India, who come together and help each other out. So if X number of people on Truecaller say a number is spam, our algorithm kicks in and it marks that number as spam for everybody else, and that's how our system works. How should it ideally pan out? I think the government should, I think TRAI should look at this, should look at our data and understand that there is spam coming through on 1600, and we should allow spammers to be called spammers, especially if consumers are saying it's spam. We should not suppress the consumer's voice. It is, I mean, you can see it on social media, you can see it on complaints. There are too many people saying that there is 1600 is being used for spam. I think we should respect that and allow consumers to express their view that this number is a spammer.
You have spoken out, but the government of India is clear. They have issued a press release as well, and they are sticking their ground. We'll leave it there for the moment and see how this really ends. Rishit Jhunjhunwala, thank you very much for your time here on Times Now. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap from me. Thanks for watching.